Hi, so today we have my friend Ahmad here. I actually found him online. He was very knowledgeable in speaking about real estate on online platforms such as YouTube, where you break down a lot of things, not that
Yeah,
relate to property, but you'll end up learning a lot besides the property. And
correct.
you are essentially, well, I think you're more than that. You're a real estate agent and yeah, you give kind of a macroeconomic view of
Mhm.
purchasing real estate in the UAE. I think that it's very much needed. I think that things are a little too simplistic online, and I enjoy the sophistication that you bring into the conversation about real estate.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, why is real estate such a difficult thing to crack in the UAE? Because even when I was purchasing my own home here, it seemed like I was really, running on all cylinders. There were Excel sheets created, there were
Hmm.
comparison charts,
Yeah,
and that makes sense. We both are finance majors. We are
correct.
educated in this aspect, and I kept on speaking to my wife, who's a forensic accountant. I'd be like, okay, we're having such a tough time running through this math,
Hmm.
and we do this for a living. So what can it be for normal people that aren't necessarily experts? And I think you're trying to bridge that gap, correct?
Yeah, correct. See, I mean, with you, I mean, obviously being in Dubai, right? Your family being here, all these things, you know a lot of things, right? Like, okay, which areas are good. And for you, it was such a difficult decision, right? And we have to understand most people, even my clientele, 95% are international clients, right? It's all that foreign investment coming in. And that's why we, just like you mentioned earlier, we moved to the longer form because, people who aren't here, they can't understand. I mean, I can only imagine how it, because believe me, when I started, new in real estate, they used to say, oh, you can't close over WhatsApp. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just not possible. I mean, how can someone just make, put their life savings into, like a property? And back in the day, I used to, think the same way. But since I've started content, believe me, I haven't met most of my clients. They've never seen me, they've never even seen their properties. Yet I've bought for them, I've rented for them, they've made good capital appreciation, I've sold it for them. So it's definitely a big risk. I mean, especially for people, who are outside, it's very confusing. I can imagine, that's why we kind of try to sit down, cover all aspects. And I really think, just like a 40-second Instagram reel isn't going to sell people, so that's why we kind of morphed into the long form content. And I did feel there was a lot of, content that was lacking.
That's interesting that you say that you don't meet a good majority of your clients, because I don't meet a good majority of my clients. I'll maybe meet them once a year, and then I
Yeah.
say goodbye tearily, and I say maybe I'll see you next year, maybe I won't see you
Yeah.
ever again. And it's not
Correct.
abnormal. I feel like I know these people and I speak to them quite a bit. But at the end of the day, I think that when you're handling people's affairs when it comes to accounting or finance, it's not abnormal for you to just be moving money or numbers around,
Yeah.
making sure they get their return back and send it back to them. And I'm kind of fascinated that this is where the real estate firm you're working for is operating in, because it kind of sounds like you guys are being contacted by, of course, wealthy individuals, but potentially even VCs or things of that nature that are looking to buy out massive swaths of real estate and rent them
Correct. Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So is that where you see the market going? Are you going to see a lot of people kind of mass purchase properties, rent them all out, or what is your clientele doing currently? Are they buying individual properties for themselves, or are they simply, are these major VCs trying to get into the market and purchase a lot of property?
So when we started, I think it's mostly individuals, right? So back in the day, I mean, most clientele actually used to be pretty local. Okay, maybe first-time buyers, maybe especially after the golden visa, right? There was a lot of movement that people were like, okay, this is great, we can stay here now. But I mean, and obviously thanks to Dubai, but more thanks to, unfortunately, the problems in the world you've seen, and these guys you probably recently heard they made Sheikh Zayed, all the buildings over there freehold as well.
Yeah.
So that did, and now when you're talking into those kind of properties where they're making a lot of Jeddah area freehold, a lot
Yeah.
of Sheikh Zayed Road freehold, these
Yes.
are massive buildings. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dirhams, right?
Yeah.
And that is an opportunity that a lot of just like you said, these venture capitalists, trust funds, family offices are moving in, and especially not just they have that opportunity now with that prime freehold area, which is proven to work. I mean, it's a pretty safe bet. and obviously with the impending problems in the world. So yeah, there is definitely a massive shift. We've seen it a lot. We've seen a lot of crypto guys come in as well. We've sold multiple floors to crypto people as well who are trying to cash out from the the crypto cycle and get into solid assets. So yeah, there's definitely demand from both sides.
There's also the uncertainty with everything that's happening in the world from investing in traditional markets. I follow the financial markets pretty closely in the US, in Europe, etc. Things aren't operating as business as usual as you would like. And you could say that it's political. You could say that it's just a natural turn of events for what's happening in the long term. And I don't want to go into details over the controversies of that. But even as people that would be very keen to be interested in compounding investments, even I've kind of split the difference into traditional investing, which a lot of it is properties or various other businesses, et cetera, and away from stocks or things of that nature. So do you think that people are looking at properties as a hedge against kind of the traditional markets here? And on top of that, you notice in UAE, the returns are higher than everywhere else in the world. Usually in countries like, or in Europe or in Australia that I've seen, maybe other jurisdictions, the returns are only 5 to 6%, but the returns in this region start between 8 to 12 and sometimes higher if you buy the property earlier. So what do you think is the reason why UAE is such a profitable property market in comparison to these other countries or jurisdictions?
So look, I mean, these guys, number one, right? They created a fundamental system, right? With, the property ownership, all these documentations, just like I said, I don't see half of my clients, right? So, and so they trust the process, they trust the government, right? So that's point number one. Point number two is that obviously, there is a lot of problems, fundamental problems in, foreign countries, right? Especially obviously US, Euro, the entire Eurozone, okay? And the thing is, I feel like a lot of people over there, they're seeing those problems come in. Obviously, if you're running a small, medium business, you have all these problems. If you're running a larger business, you have other types of problems. So I think they're really trying to diversify, move out into foreign, maybe dividend income stocks, okay? Or, another cool option is Dubai real estate because, Dubai, fortunately has, been working on this vision that they have for a long, long time, right? I mean, and we're not that old, right? We just celebrated, I believe, our 53rd National Day. So we're only 53 years old. But since the start, they've been trying to create a society where, we reward our winners. That's why, our rentals are higher. People constantly move in. And now I think slowly. So people already knew that. And the early adopters, they've made a lot of money.
Yes.
But now, it's like, all these problems came together at once, be it the deficits, the wars, all these kind of things. And it's just, we were already there and we were the next best, option. Because when you think about, okay, do I really want to move in the Middle East? I mean, the first option comes in, it's like, okay, Dubai, it's well known for everything. And another thing is that we keep forgetting that Dubai is only just a city, right? So people, constantly they're like, oh, Dubai this, Dubai that. But, they've made a fundamental system, right? Federal government's different, state-wise is different, and they've been working it hard, for a long, long time. And fortunately for them, all the cards aligned at the correct time. So we're perfectly positioned in today's market where someone wants to move in and, secure their financials, maybe hedge. And I know we're hedged, we're obviously pegged with the dollar.
Yes.
But, and we get this question all the time. It's like, okay, if the US crashes, dollar crisis comes, I mean, aren't we going to get affected? Look, I mean, in 2008, we've already seen it. These guys tried to unpeg themselves as well. Obviously, they did not. But it's a great choice for us to have, right? I mean, that's why we're working so hard on the BRICS countries as well.
I don't think that it's the dollar, even if it did hypothetically, I don't think it would collapse per se. I don't think that would impact the UAE as much as you think because of its interconnected nature. And it's built a fairly robust organic economy that doesn't rely on the US all that much besides for currency. So it wouldn't be unusual for us to have a floating currency here. It's not going to be that tricky. I mean, it sounds like silly for us to kind of nod our heads and agree with all the data and information that we've experienced. But yeah, I'm not too worried about like the dollar being unpegged.
Yeah.
If anything, that just tells you that you should move your liquid cash into either a store of value or an investment of some sort, because sooner or later, you're like at any point in your life, you're going to have a pile of cash, and nothing is a better protection than having like a piece of real estate. And this is your grandfather said that, your great grandfather probably said that, so it must ring true to a certain extent. And I guess like the motivation for me to purchase a property initially wasn't necessarily because, oh, I want to make X number of returns. Like I was born and raised here, right? At a certain point, you get sick of switching apartments every 2, 3, 4 years, and you kind of want to pour a bit more money and love into your home. So, you know, like my apartment, yes, as soon as I bought it, ripped the floors out and put something new in, built in all the things you can't do when you're renting, right? Like you want to put a bit of love and make it feel like home, or at the very least. So for me, that was a primary motivator. I like, sure, I would have maybe saved a bit of money renting, not anymore because of when I bought and what I got. But what I'm trying to say is that you can't replace the comfort of a home when you own it, and the ability to decorate and make your place your own.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think one of the another thing is, like, I've noticed that a lot of the apartments, it's about where you buy and not what you buy. So there's a lot of like empty box feelings of apartments here. You probably noticed that it just boils down to numbers, like square footage, layouts are fairly standard, everything's standard. Do you think that the property market is going to focus on just being kind of standardized, or do you think that they might diversify and give more unique properties with different finishes? Where do you see it going in terms of trend line? Do you think that developers are going to take more risks with the developments they're making, or they're going to stick to more standard, give the maximum space possible? Like, what do you think will happen?
So I think back in the day, I mean, it took a while for it to be now fairly standardized, right? So it doesn't matter what kind of, you know, wherever you're going, because I mean, which is great about competition, right? I mean, everyone wants to have at least the bare minimum, right? And we see this all the time. I mean, you can be living in any apartment in Dubai, and there's no doubt in my mind that you're still living a better, you know, standard of life than, you know, half, you know, across the world, right? I mean, you have your gyms, you have your pools, and these things are now considered basic. Right?
Yeah,
they're pretty basic. I mean, everyone has that, and we've seen the shift more into, you know, exclusive properties. More, I mean, people need to stand out now, right? And that's why we see all these brands coming up. I mean, Brabus is coming up with buildings, Mansouri's coming up with buildings, right? And we have Bentley Homes. So I think that it's getting more and more competitive. I think and especially with the, you know, the traction of wealth that is coming, just like we spoke about earlier, you know, where we have family offices, all, you know, high net worth individuals moving in, they demand more exclusivity as well. So I'd say, I mean, you know, just like we are, you know, capitalistic society, you know, a rising tide, you know, basically lifts all boats. So I mean, the standard is now much higher than it was a long time back, and you know, the premium stuff is just getting more and more premium. So I think that trend.
So do you believe that, okay, with this inflow of ultra luxury apartments, it's going to force kind of the lower end to also have things that would previously be considered luxury implemented? Is that your general vision of what things are going to happen?
I think, and to an extent it already has, right? So even if you go to the, you know, the bottom tier developers, like, you know, tier 3, I mean, we can talk about Samana, Danube, all these, you know, because every developer has its niche, right? I mean, everyone has their own budget, and every, you know, developer wants to target a budget class, right? And Benghati, you know, and Benghati is a prime example, right? Where you're looking at, you know, where if you want, you know, something from a small studio in the most basic community, like let's say Arjan or something, all the way to, let's say, a Bugatti penthouse, right? They have everything. So I mean, obviously that's just one developer, but it goes to show, like, they're learning from all their, you know, top tier developments, and it boils down to the rest. Now, does everyone do that? No, but I think, competition is definitely forcing everyone to up their game, and I think the standard apartment in Dubai is already at quite a high level. Is it only going to get better? Definitely. I mean, you know, developers keep coming up with more and more amenities, right? If you look at someone like Ellington or something, which is a boutique developer, they don't make, you know, a lot of stuff, but whatever they do make, it's always competing with the luxury end. Yeah,
I have seen a number of really beautiful buildings that are like not branded, not no name developers as well. So even if you are, I don't think brand is everything. I think the way that I would recommend, and of course I'm not an expert or anything, but whenever someone's asked me, okay, which area, where do I buy, which developer do I go with? I say, well, forget all that. Just walk into the building you want to buy in, see if you can see a unit that's ready that you can look into and see the facilities. Because at the end of the day, there are standardized practices for construction. And yes, you're going to have certain developers that may be more diligent or have kind of like a reputation to be better buildings or better upkeep, but it's really hard to say. Even when I was purchasing a property, I actually got in contact with one of the tenants, just like, oh, let me stalk this guy, find him, message him. And like, you can do a lot and find out a lot of information just by reaching out to people. When your clients are kind of reaching out for the purposes of living in the apartment, not simply for returns, is there a different approach you take for people that are looking to live in their apartments versus rental returns?
So for us, and we get this all the time, but for me, both things are the same, right? Because if you want to live in an apartment, right, you want a nice place, right?
Yeah.
But that's the same thing we want for the tenant.
Yeah.
Right? So if it's a livable community, if it ticks all the boxes where you would yourself live in it, right?
Yes.
It ticks all the boxes for investment because the tenant's gonna think the same thing, like Nishama Town Square, Dubai Hills, all these things. People want to live there themselves, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're an owner, right, landlord, you're going to have a lot of tenants. And we see this all the time. I mean, if you look at Dubai Hills Estate, for example, a lot of buildings. For those who've seen it, there's a lot, so many buildings. And even if today you go and you try to search, like a 2-bed or a 3-bed, you might find 10, 15 listings, right, in a community that has thousands of units. So it shows you that people want to live there. And you as a landlord, be it you live yourself or you rent it out, it's pretty solid. The only thing that changes is maybe the budget changes, right? So if you're looking for rentals, usually people, don't want to put in that much, and the only approach that we would change is, I would say the view and all these things would not matter that much, right? Maybe if you want to live for yourself in a building, I'd be like, okay, great. I mean, if you're putting this much money, might as well try to go for the higher floor, get the best view, for example. But if you're looking for returns, then it kind of doesn't make sense, right? Because you can maybe get that same unit at the mid floor and save like 5%. Right?
Yeah.
So there's no point. So that's the only thing we would change. But apart from that, the fundamentals stay the same.
And of course, working within a field, everyone forms their own biases. What areas do you feel like are kind of your pick for? And this doesn't have to align with rental returns or yields, but what are your favorite areas in Dubai?
So for me, I mean, a lot of the areas that are up and coming are very nice, right? Like, for example, me specifically, I like the Arjan area. I think there's a lot of potential coming up over there.
I like Arjan as well. I think it's very, very, it's under talked about.
Yeah.
And I people really need to see the potential there.
Yeah. I think Arjan is excellent. For John, okay, these areas have excellent connectivity. Okay, there's going to be a lot of progress there, and I don't think it's going to take that much time. I mean, I think in the short term, maybe 5 years time, I think these communities are going to be pretty solid. More on the long term, I think Imar South overall is obviously a very, very excellent area. I mean, if you look at the land right now on the map, it's pretty empty, but all those plots are pretty much sold out, right? So I think, but that's more of a, like a suburban community.
Yes.
All these things a bit more.
Well, that's definitely going to come into demand as people start having families and kids, and they want more space, and they want to stay with their, like, kind of make sure schools are close by for their kids and all that. And I think that Dubai's currently the 1-beds, the studios, the 2-beds, that's not any space at all for a family. So people are definitely going to start demanding these larger suburban properties. Yeah. And what's funny is that if you really want to know what real estate is worth, just take, in my opinion, you should get up one morning, take some time off, and just start driving around from one area to the next. Yeah. I think that when you instantly like start driving from one area to the next, you get a good feel of what that commute is worth. You can actually time it by how long it takes between where you work and where you are to evaluate a property as well.
100%, yeah. And everyone has different requirements, and I mean, the best way to do it is you can come and do it,
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've heard a saying, and you can confirm this or not, is that you're either a downtown person or a marina person. Do you find that stereotype is true, that there seems to be a divide among expats? It's either like downtown. Okay, so this is perfect. So what is a downtown person and what is a marina person in your perspective? Like, what are the two distinctions between these two groups of people?
Well, I mean, downtown is more like, I mean, people prefer, you can probably say they want to live in like, I wouldn't say a hyped area, but like a very mature, area. Whereas I would still say marina is obviously probably more outgoing people, more of the party vibes. I feel like is in the JBR Marina.
You're
area
being
for
very
sure, yeah.
politically correct. If you're saying Marina, by the way, only McDonald's in the city that requires bouncers at 2 a.m. And, like only in Marina, in only
Marina,
place.
yeah, Marina.
If you're ever free on a weekend night, go to Marina.
Yeah.
1, 2 a.m. You just find these giant dudes, right? Throwing out riffraff. I'm talking like, no offense to British people, but mostly British people flying through the sky, being kicked out of McDonald's for being riffraff. So it's
100%. So
I've spent a lot of nights in Marina, like on the weekends, but I'm definitely a downtown person. I like, especially where I live, I just can't. Like, those people are insane. Like,
and I think Dubai's been smart about it as well. They've given each what they want, So I mean, if you are that kind of person, JBR Marina is the way to go. I guess more, down, a bit more sophisticated, not that party outgoing. Not that downtown is, it is a lot tamer, but I mean,
no, but it's very like business lunches, dinners,
business
like
lunches,
high end restaurants as well.
Yeah, DIFC you got right next door. I mean, Michelin star, all that. Yeah.
It's really nice, and DIFC is such a maze. You walk into it, you think that you know DIFC, but there's like an internal outside area as well as an inside area, all connected to major firms, etc. And it's really, really beautiful. I think DIFC is my favorite area, probably.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It's really awesome. So we're living through like very perilous times. The recent situation with Iran and Israel was really escalating, and a lot of my clients were asking like, "Oh, is it safe to travel, etc." And of course, I was here throughout Iraq and Afghanistan, and it was like you don't feel it at all. Airspace is rarely closed. They did close this time, unfortunately, and that threw people off. But things went back to business as usual in 48 hours, and I guess people find that kind of surprising that even though the conflict is so close, UAE has always been kind of this area where like you can't even tell or experience that level of conflict or disturbance when it comes to living.
Yeah, and I think they've worked, tirelessly and very hard at it, for a very long, long time where they've, tried to make, diplomatic relationships on both sides of the conflict, right? So I think when they come out, especially we have a lot of trade with these countries, both sides. And we're, I think, one of the few Gulf nations that actually has, diplomatic relations with Israel as well. Now, a lot of people flag that, obviously, as being like a negative thing. It's very hard because, believe me, for myself as well, I mean, if you put yourself in the leadership shoes, I mean, they have to make very, very tough decisions, right? But I feel like they have a very UAE first approach.
Yeah.
Okay, where they're like, okay, look, I mean, these things are all great, but how does that affect our residents, our citizens, our business and all these things? So, I mean, they've worked very, very hard to, give us the life where we have, and alhamdulillah, I'd rather, wouldn't be anywhere else in the world other than Dubai.
It is interesting that UAE's form of diplomacy seems to be acting as an economic corridor for the rest of the world. And if you look at where they are in the map, tied to the sea, being like Fujairah being one of the largest trade ports in the world, as well as a transport for oil and gas. They're trying to build, routes throughout Saudi Arabia to Africa. It's almost like, well, it's not almost. It is true that they completely understand their position in the region and realize that they do have to facilitate all nations and neighbors around us to make sure that things operate as smoothly. And it's kind of amazing that they have managed to stay out of conflict for as long as they have, considering where they're positioned. It's really surprising.
Yeah, and unfortunately for the rest of the world, the problem is, I mean, this should be obvious, right? I mean, I don't understand why other nations can't understand this, but, government should be pro-business. It makes for a better life for everyone, right? But unfortunately, nowadays we see in the West and all these things where, and the biggest problem, in my opinion, is, the 4-year cycle, right? So, I mean, all these guys, they come in, they don't have any long-term planning. Whereas, I mean, the UAE, we have the same leadership for the past 50 years. So they can at least sit down and plan for long-term, right? Where good politics, good policies make for good business. Whereas if you look at other countries in the world, in my opinion, I mean, good policies for business are terrible politics.
Exactly. And it usually takes any kind of economic policy to really see fruit takes at least 10 years.
Exactly, yeah.
At least 10 years. Like, you can't build or lay down any kind of infrastructure for at least, you start seeing the results at 5 years, but 10 years post implementation to see results. So it's only logical, not saying that, a country should exceed their presidential candidates or leadership and not rotate them every 4 years, but maybe a unified economic body that isn't as impacted by the political person in charge and have limiting powers. Of course, we're just like speculating, and this is kind of hypocritical of two Pakistanis talking about how countries should be run, considering like,
I mean,
but like, let's not talk about Pakistan right now and how.
We're just so beyond,
No, I think thing, like that was also interesting. So I was there around the age of like 15 or 16 to like 18, 19, something like that. And I was just like, yeah, there's no fixing this. I'm going to go back to UAE.
Exactly.
And unfortunately it had caused my family to strip all their assets and bring them here and really invest or double down here. But at the end of the day, above all else, despite nationality or kind of clashes, you need stability. And political stability may be, in my opinion, one of the most valuable things to a country.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it's a very important. That's why we see, our population is 95% expats. So, and unfortunately, a lot of countries have, similar problems nowadays, and they can't come up with, these kind of radical changes overnight, So, they've, just like I said, they've positioned themselves in a, excellent situation where, all us guys from outside are coming here and we're living the dream.
I mean, I've this running joke with my friends is like the most UAE thing to see is an Indian Pakistani guy hanging out, drinking chai and having fun. It's like a classic thing. And it's like some of my employees are Indian and like I'm Pakistani. There's never been this, like, even while the war was happening between two countries, both sides were like, well, why is this happening? It's just mass confusion. And I think that, I know it's a pipe dream, but it would be wonderful to see the two countries move towards collaboration because economically there's a lot of self-interest there for there to operate.
Yeah, 100%. And especially when you come here and we're, and we both lived all our lives outside, but, even people who recently move, they move here and, in like a matter of months, they get accustomed to, the trade because at the end of the day, humans, we want to live together, right? If your neighbor's Hindu, Indian, or from the, from US or UK or wherever, if you're in Pakistan and you don't have that exposure, right, it's very difficult. So when you listen to all this propaganda, and at the end of the day, when you move to somewhere like, Dubai, where we have like 130 nationalities, it's a melting pot, you realize at the end of the day, people want the same thing. They just want, opportunity.
And I actually, weirdly enough, and you could speak to this as, so being a GCC kid, I was always surrounded by other nationalities all the time. Yeah. Whenever I go to a country and it's homogenous, I actually get very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's weird.
I was just like, I went to Singapore and I was just like, wow, there's nothing but Asian people here. Like, this is, and of course, like it wasn't like, oh, like why are there so many Asian? Of course, it's Singapore, but I just found it just so weird and different compared to when we walk across the street. We literally see dozens of nationalities all doing the same thing. So I think that there's a lot more social cohesion than people give credit to the UAE, that you do see people work and operate outside their circles a lot more than it would be traditionally allowed.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And when you because that's the thing, right? It's like when you have good opportunity for everyone, you have the safety, you have the security, no one's worried about things being stolen or this and that, and you have the best opportunity, you're too busy to even think about these things. So, and at the end of the day, I think everyone just realizes that, look, we're all after the same thing. We just want good opportunities. We want a nice, safe, secure area for our family, or if you're living alone. But yeah, unfortunately, most of the world now, it's pretty difficult to get.
And I guess it's also a unique experience growing up in the Middle East, but not being from the Middle East. You grew up in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. I grew up and was born and raised in UAE. So how would you, if you had to communicate that experience, because some people are moving here and planning to raise their family here, how do you explain that kind of experience of being raised in a country that you're not from and living and growing up? Like, you could kind of give a few examples of what you think that was like.
So, moving here, right? I was technically, born, raised here. So obviously I never lived anywhere else. So for me, it was always something that was, pretty natural. I can't really tell someone who has had, like, let's say a Pakistan experience or, some other country experience. But overall, I mean, it's been, I've enjoyed my time. I think I had a, excellent life here. And I think I am spoiled, to a lot of extent. So yeah, I mean, once you move here, I think it's but it is very easily adaptable, right? I mean, if people are moving here and they're worried, oh, their kids are going to have a, hard time or this and that, so it couldn't be further away from the truth. I think once kids come here, I think they're gonna, adapt very, very easily. I had a lot of friends who moved into Saudi later on, right? Even though
Yeah.
I was born and raised there. I mean,
Yeah.
just like, I moved to Dubai later on. And more or less, it is pretty much the same. You can go to any Gulf country, although, in my opinion, even though I was born and raised in Saudi, I still prefer UAE just because, the more freedoms and, the opportunities that are over here. But apart from that, I mean, you shouldn't, think twice about it. And we have had a lot of clients recently who came and they moved, and before they even bought something, they said, hey Ahmed, can you recommend some schools?
Yeah.
Can you recommend
Very
these
common
things?
question.
Yeah, and we're gonna rent out for a year, and we're gonna send our kids to school, all these things. Once they get comfortable, now the whole rhythm starts. Because obviously I can imagine if you're in your teenage years, it might be a difficult choice,
Yeah,
right? You
absolutely.
have you have your friends there, you have all these things. If I had to move from Saudi when I was a teenager, might have been a different
Yeah.
story. I moved here for my studies, so I mean it was a natural transition. But I think you should make the move. At the end of the day, it's a long-term plan. I think this country is not having any issues for the foreseeable future, inshallah. And I think they're very pro-business. I don't think, I mean, unfortunately, Oman recently released the income tax. So,
I don't know
yeah.
why Oman would. I really thought about that. It's like why, but it makes sense because Oman has a much higher local population than
Yeah.
UAE versus expats. So I think that might be a bit more of the justification, saying, okay, you are people in this country, maybe you should contribute. But I think, and I saw some foreign posts about people saying, oh, it's coming to UAE next, and I said, I don't know, that's a big gamble there. I'm not sure if that would go too well with their long-term goals.
I mean, obviously, I can't say anything for sure. Anything is possible. But in my opinion, what I've seen, and I think what the fundamentals are of this country, I think it's never gonna happen right now.
That's a pretty
Yeah.
solid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't never.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say never. There would have to be the right trade-offs, and I don't think
They just aren't, because the problem is, even see, why would you I mean, Oman, relatively small country,
Yes.
right? They want to, so even if they introduce, what is it, like 5% 8%, I think, or something like that, personal income tax, how much revenue can you generate, right? I mean, for them, maybe they don't have a population, but the thing is, we say this on our YouTube all the time, the thing is, our government is very, very fiscally responsible. I mean,
Yeah.
what do we even need money for? We're
And
already so well
on
funded.
top of that, the income that people are paid out are post-tax adjusted. So you may see that the salaries that they're getting paid out at the end may seem lower than you would get paid in like the US or Europe, but once you account for tax and what you pay in the brackets, it's actually at least 20 to 30% higher.
Yeah.
And some people are really lucky where they just get their same pay, same everything, but no income taxes.
Yeah.
So I think that it very much depends. And once you start messing around with that math, things get a lot more unpredictable. People become a lot less uncertain, and other jurisdictions would chomp at the bits to take on that crown of being a tax free place to conduct business.
Yeah, because see, I mean, Oman started it. Unfortunately, Saudi has a lot of deficits. They have a lot of problems fundamentally when it comes to financing all these things. They might push. I mean, we saw VAT go from 5 to 15%, right? And
Yeah.
believe me, that was a big jump, right?
Yeah.
And there's no ways coming back down. So
Yeah.
I mean, once a tax is increased, it's pretty much set in stone, right? I don't think they're ever going to come back from that. Same thing with the thing with Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain. These are very, very small countries. I don't think they have any
And they don't
spending. Yeah.
particularly because they're most of the people earning the income anyway, or they're a good part of them are working in the government sector, being paid out. So
Yeah.
I don't think that the government taking money for what they're paying back, it's just going to be a loop and a waste of time and bureaucracy.
Yeah, exactly. It's a waste of time. And these countries are very small. They don't have, I mean, Oman is relatively bigger than those. They have some, maybe projects they want to develop. Saudi does have that problem where they are it's an advantage. And unfortunately for them, I mean, they're trying to develop the whole thing at once.
Yeah.
And it's costing them a fortune. So, I mean, will they introduce it? Probably. But I think UAE will still take the stance that, okay, look, we need to, remain the pro-business, no tax nation. Yeah.
Well, being a tax firm, I would say that the vast majority of people that do come here are getting access to resources, paying the bare minimum, and getting better infrastructure than they would have in other gray area. Well, your alternative is gray area, shady tax jurisdictions that are on blacklists from both the U.S. and Europe. And sure, if you want to take that gamble, you can. But if you're looking for a straightforward path of minimization and optimization that's completely legal, then you come here. UAE has the right combination of cost to benefit analysis currently, but that could change, and I think that it's very important to be kind of on the pulse and vocal about what it should or should be. And of course we have to, at the end of the day, we don't work for a company, we work for our clients, and we have to be transparent and honest with them about the numbers.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I hope that, these guys realize what they have. I think they do. And I think they're going to try to protect what they've built. And, that means, good policies, strong policies, low taxation. And I think they're going to stick to that. And I, really do hope so for our sake and our clients' sake.
Okay. So let's just say you're a first-time home buyer. What are the tips and tricks that you would kind of introduce or tell people that they should do if they're going to buy their first property?
For themselves to live in?
For themselves to live in, yes. If you're buying a property for yourself to live in, what should you be doing?
So first and foremost, understand your requirements, right? Okay, this is where I live. This is where my kids go to school. This is, I want my commute time to be, like 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever, right? Once you have that out of the day, it's going to shortlist all the areas you want to be in, right? Then next thing you need to realize is, okay, do I want a mortgage? Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have cash? Okay. If I want a mortgage, how much can I pay? Is it affordable for me? Because the problem is a lot of the times these first time buyers, they come in and they have no idea what they even want. Right? And then you have to do all the work for them step by step. And I think it should be pretty logical, what you need to do. So just think about what your demands are. Then think about how you're going to pay for it. If you want a mortgage, if you want to pay cash up front, okay. I would say always, if you're going for obviously if it's personal use, you're probably buying a bigger property, maybe your family's growing up, mortgage it, you can easily pay it off. There's no point. I wouldn't put that much cash into one asset, personal opinion. Or if you're going the off-plan route, right? Because obviously most of the things we spend off-plan, if you don't want to pay, for 20 years, and you can, you're living here, you see yourself working in the UAE for the foreseeable future, then get into off-plan. Yeah. Because the thing is, your prices is going to be lower, right? You don't have to pay any interest, right? You don't have to pay all these fees and costs that banks are going to take and, valuations, all these.
And if you just save a bit more, I think the down payments for a reasonable size property can, for like, let's just say 1.5 or 1 million. So you're going to look at 250, maybe 250, 280, something with everything included. And then once you start factoring it, if you want an off plan that's a 1 bedroom, you can easily get away with paying maybe 600 to 700K cash. It sounds like a lot more money, and it is, but then you end up saving a lot on the interest and you move in anyway.
Yeah, 100%.
And then you could pay in steps, right? You can pay like 30, 40% and then move in, and then we'll see how the construction's going and paying piece by piece.
Yeah.
I am a keen believer that off-plan is a great option for value maximization. But of course, there is this perception in the market that, oh, don't trust an off plan. You don't know how the building's going to end up, et cetera. So do you think that, how do you dispel some of that distrust that people have of off plans? Is it just, well, you got to risk it for the returns, or like, how do you convince, or how would you say people should be less nervous about buying off plan?
So you have to understand, number one, try to be with, especially in today's day and age where there's so much competition, there's so many developers, do your research in the sense that, number one, what you want to see is the broker that's representing you, right? Where is he from? What agency does he represent? I think it's paramount in today's day and age. Because let's say you do all the hard work, and I've, before I joined Aon and Tristle, I used to be in a smaller company, and believe me, back in the day, City Walk, these kind of launches came, and I had clients with ready checks, and we never got a unit. So that is the most disappointing thing you can have, where you're all sold for a project and you didn't even get the unit, right? So first and foremost, figure out where your broker's from, see the company, see the history, right?
That is something that happened with me, actually. There was these two apartments that me and my wife both wanted. And we got the call saying, the owner kind of doesn't agree or sold it already to someone for all cash, that is actually very like emotionally devastating, because
Yeah, it is, yeah.
you start looking at the place, you start imagining living in it, et cetera, and then you told like it's gone. You know?
It's gone. Yeah. So point number one, make sure your brokerage is pretty solid. In my opinion, I think it's paramount in today's day and age when you have a reputable brokerage, right? Point number two is that, look, I mean, I think doesn't matter what broker, you have to understand, and your broker has to explain to you that, look, there are tiers of developers, right? You have the tier one where you have Dubai Holdings, okay, where you have Nakhil, Miras, Dubai Properties, Imar, Damac, all these kind of guys who are tier one. They've been in the industry for 20 plus years. Now, if you have the budget for that, always go for those.
Yeah.
Okay, because you can see what they've done, right? I
Yeah.
mean, if you have any doubts, just go look at Palm Jumeirah, go look at MJL, right?
Yeah.
Go look at City Walk. I mean, and now look at all these things that these guys have done. I mean, you really can't go to downtown and have doubts about Imar, right? I mean, or Creek Harbor. So, but not everyone as a first-time home buyer may have that cash flow, or as an investor may have that thing, right? So then try to go for tier two. Go for someone like Nishama, right? Nishama Town Square does excellent stuff. Even Damac has a lot of good options. Binoati is very up and coming. So point number two, go with developers who have historical data. Because if it is an off-plan building, I mean, what is there to see apart from the plot, right?
Yeah.
Can't see anything. Recently, we were invited by Imtiaz. That video will be dropping soon as well. And Imtiaz is a very solid tier two developer where they have been contracting for a lot of time. Okay, they have buildings under their belt where they have handed over. Right, so go to the building, see it, see the furnishings, and it's one of the developers that is giving a fully furnished option even in today's market, right? So, go look at their historical building. Now, if it's now I understand a lot of people, unfortunately, they come and they go with completely new developers just because the price was right, the payment plan was right, and there are some developers who are maybe their reputation might not be that good, but let's say they have a plot of land that's pretty excellent, right?
Yeah.
And prime example, we recently got an exclusive building with Aeon Crystal called Hills Views, right? It's in the Furjan area. If you've seen the Nuke by Wassel, it's right next to it. So now this developer, they've only, constructed maybe 2-3 buildings in Dubai.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that, okay, if they've done 2-3 towers in JLT, I'm sure they can build a 14-story building.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
And let's say, okay, it aligns with your budget, it aligns with your payment plan. It might not have the brand image, but the other fundamentals are pretty solid.
Yeah.
Right? You're in a Wassel community. Okay. You have the metro station right there. You have the mall right there. So these are the fundamentals that you just got to look. I mean, just use common sense, honestly, right? If it looks shady, just stay out, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I tell my clients this all the time. I'm like, look, we can run the numbers all day if you want, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't feel right, it's at the end of the day, it's an emotional decision.
Yes.
If you agree or not, because believe me, I've done this enough times where, it's just an emotional decision, right? We closed one of our clients. He bought Expo, sight unseen. He didn't even know what the floor plan was.
Yeah.
But he's been to Expo a couple of times. He loves Expo.
Yeah.
And he was just like, okay, this is something I love. I love the vibe. This is where I want to buy an apartment. And he bought it. I didn't even know what the floor plan was, right?
And
so it happens, yeah.
Yeah, and what was strange about buying a place is that no one seemed to ever have a positive experience with a real estate agent. Why is that? Why you guys? Well, I'd like to say that. I'm pretty confident in saying you guys must be the most hated people throughout the country. 100%. Like even like the second next is like lawyers probably, but you're definitely. Why are real estate agents hated so much in the market in terms of like professions?
Yeah, it is very hated, unfortunately. Although I think it's a very difficult profession. You really have to be competent. But the thing is, right, in a free market society, I might not agree with how many people there are in the market, but the thing is, that's what's so great about competition, right? So when this correction does come, it's gonna fizzle out all the people who can't perform or who are not in it, because the barrier of entry is very low.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, unfortunately, there's a lot of bad actors who really don't understand anything. They're just told that, look, you gotta call these guys, and because the property market is right now in an upswing. Unfortunately, a lot of bad actors have been making good for a while, but I think the free market punishes those sooner or later. The tide is going to
So
go
you're
down.
saying it's just basically the fallout from people that all of a sudden entered the right people, said the right things, but turned out they didn't really know anything.
Yeah, they didn't, because the thing is, when you get into real estate, right? I mean, me myself, I mean, there's very low barrier to entry. I was actually surprised. So when I started, I mean, okay, yeah, I come from a finance background. I've done sales. I know what I'm talking about, but, for the most part. But there's a lot of people. I was surprised, at some of the people that were being hired in the same company I was in, and I was like, I mean, are you guys really? And no one even asked me anything about real estate in the beginning as well. And I get it. Look, I mean, it's a free market. I believe everyone has, if you
chance to
get a chance, because you never know, right? You might be completely incompetent, but I mean, you get into real estate, maybe it was your calling.
Yeah.
So, you come. So I think it's a fair chance. Unfortunately, you have to do it, but that's why you got to stand out. And, that's why I try to do content, get my face out there. So it's a tough market. Yeah.
And I also think it's so important to not just be in front of a camera because you want to advertise your product or service, but kind of speak on the expertise that you're all about.
Yeah, exactly. Because the thing is, we just like you said, you prefer the long form content, and for me, it might take 6 to 8 hours to make a presentation.
Yeah.
Right. And going through all the research, this and that, and obviously we use a lot of AI nowadays for our editing, our thumbnails, our research, and all that. So it has become better, but the thing is, not everyone can do that, right?
You it sounds really, even on the little reels and stuff on my channel where I explain tax law, you're like, oh, he just spoke for 60 seconds. But that's to dilute a topic to 60 seconds and cover it in great detail takes hours and hours, because you need to pick the right words that are most accurate. It actually is a lot more work than people give it credit for. Not the hardest thing in the world, but definitely takes some time to get through.
Well, once you get in the rhythm, then it becomes easy. I mean, believe me, when I started, I mean, now people will look at it and they're saying, oh, that's a 40-minute video. It might have taken me like 14 hours to make a photo, because it's like the logistics are involved, and you got to do the research, then you got to get the permits a lot of the times to film the area, and then you got to go there and all these things. But once you get into the rhythm, I mean, this is what I do. I enjoy what I do. I'm passionate about it. So, I mean, it's really not work. I don't feel like it's work, but yeah, you got to put in the effort. And that's the thing, like a lot of people who are, new joinees or bad actors, or they might not know what they're talking about. They really can't sit down and talk for a topic for 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how long are you just going to
They're going to be pressed, and eventually they'll slip up.
Exactly. Yeah, they'll do it. And they might, and just because of the uptrend, I think there's a lot of clientele who they themselves might not understand. But if they do once in a while get a client who's actually, knows what they're talking about, they can see right through them, and they'll switch brokerages. Yeah.
And that's what I felt a lot when I was purchasing my property, saying, well, I understand the market. I was born and raised here. I know how this works. I have clients that have done this thousands of times, and it took me less than 2 minutes to be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, really. He's just speaking abstractions and nonsense, and he's just trying to get me to buy off him. And
so it happens. Unfortunately, it is one of the pitfalls. But even though it is a pitfall, and it's in my industry, I'd still rather have it no other way. I believe still, free market is what it is. Obviously, the government tries to, have licensing, all these things. Obviously, we're all licensed brokers. A lot of people do it without the license. It is what it is. But in my opinion, I mean, it's competition. Work harder. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting of saying, well, if you were just it's easier to become the best at what you do rather than clean up the bad actors, to be honest.
Yeah, be the best. Yeah, just be the best. Try to work hard, because, once people do realize that, okay, your thing, you're going to start making your own circles. Yeah.
And I guess my final question would be, is that no budget, you could buy a place anywhere for yourself. Where would you buy? Where would you live?
Oh, that's a nice question. My favorite is the Bulgari Lighthouse.
Really?
So Bulgari Island, Lighthouse. That is, in my opinion, it does not get better than Bulgari Island.
And how much would a sizable place in the lighthouse cost you?
So I think they recently sold one for like 300 million or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're definitely not. I think that's a bit of a pipe dream, unless we invent an entire industry that is not happening.
Yeah. So I mean, 300 billion is a long ways to go. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's a dream. But yeah, in my opinion, I mean, Bulgari Island is really where it's at. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not leaving downtown. Yeah, I'm not gonna get clawed out of there. There's no way in hell. It doesn't matter how much.
So and that's why I love it so much, is because it's like, Bulgari Island is like where you're still close to everything.
Yeah.
But you're on a private island, so
It's pretty insane. I think I was driving into Creek Harbor one time, and it was just like a singular road that goes in and out of it. They may have made more exits, but I was so confused. I was like, when did they build this? Like, this is insane. Do you have functional, like, everything's built and ready to go and
Creek
be
Harbor is
sold?
amazing,
Creek Harbor is pretty sick.
Yeah, it's amazing because they look, and that's the best part about competition, right? So these guys build downtown, they've built Marina, right? And they've learned from all the things that, and fun fact, Creek Harbor is only exclusively MR. So there's no other developer.
Yes.
Like in downtown, you have many, developments. In Marina, you have many developers. But MR coming in as a master plan developer, not allowing anyone else to get in, they can really control what building comes. And if you look at the island, it's a very funny shape, but there's a method to the madness, right? So because in Marina, you might open your balcony and there's another balcony right in front of you.
Yeah.
But if you go to Creek Harbor and you're standing at the Central Park, I mean, it's such a nice open area, and you're right in the middle of like a downtown type vibe, type of area. And I'm so very amazing.
And there's still a lot of areas left to be built over. And I think that, unlike, for example, really hot property markets like London, Singapore, New York, they're full, right? And then whereas Dubai just has this opportunity to expand more from the ocean, more towards the right, and you can see those spots just be developed endlessly. I think 2050 Dubai is going to look pretty huge. Like I think that right now this is just the beginning. I think that there's going to be so much more land expansion towards the point where people will look at these areas that we're talking about being like completely inaccessible to normal people. So I am saying to people, yes, the rents seem high, the prices seem high, but you try buying something in the center of New York. You try buying something in the center of Singapore. Unless you have a couple $1 million, you can forget about it. And the fact that you can currently potentially buy something for a couple $100,000 in the center of the city is unlike any other place in the world.
Yeah, because if you look at, for example, Miami, right, which is very comparable to Dubai because that that beach lifestyle and all these things. You're looking at beachfront property around 10,000 dirhams a square foot.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to MR beachfront, right, where people say is overpriced now, it's at like what 3,500 dirhams, 4,000 dirhams per square foot.
Yeah.
And I think there's no doubt in my mind that 2050 Dubai is going to be at that same level.
Yes.
And I don't think those areas are going to sustain the way they are. I mean, I hope they will, but unfortunately, they're not doing anything that signals that they will. So I think there's no doubt. And there's a lot of people who say that, okay, look, it's a very dystopian thing, is just concrete, glass, all these things. I think there's so many varieties, right? And we just saw this with, for example, Ghaff Woods that just came out, which is a forest style community.
Yeah,
that community is going to have more trees than residents. It's going to have like 300 bird species. Yeah, all these things. So I think there really is. Again, it's all about competition. So you want to live that forest style, go to Ghaff Woods. You want that beachfront style, go to Marina.
Yeah.
There's something for everyone. Yeah. And, the city is just so vibrant. It's so different.
And it's expanding rapidly.
Yeah, and it's expanding. And we have space. And I think, and again, fundamentally, just like we spoke about earlier, these guys want to create that, very organic economy. And, that's why they're working very hard to attract more people, have more population. And it's just the best, really.
Yeah. So at the end, I predict a correction towards the end of the year and the start of next year. And, coincidentally, that's when I'm looking to buy my next property, probably something here and there. But why do you believe that there might be a slight correction towards the end of the year, start of next year? Or do you think that it's going to keep growing, or prices for apartments are going to keep going up? Where do you see the market going?
So, look, I mean, obviously we can just look at historical data. No one knows the future. Hopefully everything just fizzles out and remains strong. But obviously we have to understand that this is a cyclical market. I think there is going to be a massive correction. Okay, in my opinion, I think just you don't have to just listen to me, right? It's not like I'm some expert.
Yeah.
But if you listen to people,
have reached that conclusion researching independently, economists, people that work and live here for VC, all real estate firms, it is aligning to a belief for a correction.
100%. No, I think there will be a correction, definitely, and that's what I try to be. And frankly, people are saying it's going to be a light correction. I think it might start off light, but I think there will be a deeper correction, but that may be later down the line. And again, not just because Dubai has something wrong with it, it's just because fundamentally, I think the US, the Eurozone, all these guys. I mean, recently they just wrote a report that I think 8 years or something, Social Security is going to be completely unfunded and all these problems. So I think those things are going to crackle down and topple down all the way down to Dubai. There might be some time, maybe 4 or 5 years down the line. But yeah, short term, I think there definitely is going to be some correction.
And there's nothing wrong with a correction. Like,
No,
sure,
not at
like,
all, yeah.
and it gives kind of like the working class a bit of breathing room till their incomes catch up with inflation, things of that nature, and then it'll go back up. I don't think that looking for endless capital gain growth from your real estate portfolio is the smartest way. It'd be a good way to secure your wealth, but definitely not the best way to grow it per
No,
se.
yeah, 100%. It's not sustainable. I don't think any chart in the world has just been going up consistently, right?
Yeah.
There has to be some natural causes. But the thing I do like to tell people all the time is that, look, once it does go down, and a lot of people, buying today, right? Buying today, they might be like, okay, look, I'm waiting for this or that, for the correction to come and all these things. And unfortunately, we've had recent closings from Singapore, and unfortunately, Singapore, real estate, just like you said, is through the charts. Their taxes, they've implemented a lot of taxes, or from Europe, right, where the currency, the weaker dollar. I mean, now it's gone back. It has helped, people in the Eurozone just based on currency exchange difference, right? So these people now they're in a bit of a different scenario. So I tell them, look, get in now, right?
Yeah.
Because the problem is if you wait for a correction. And you have the funds now, right? The problem is, and I've seen this, time and time again. Let's say, even during the, the COVID cycle, all these things. A lot of people, let's say there is a correction, they wait, right? And then the problem is the prices go down. Let's say there's a time, 5-10% correction, and then I call them and I'm like, okay, look, this is the time to get in, and then they'll be like, no, it's gonna go lower.
Yeah,
it's gonna go lower.
I don't believe in trying to time a cycle per se.
Yeah.
You can get a rough feel that you may be getting a decentish deal, but there's no way you're going to time it perfectly.
No one can time. I mean, only God knows the time. So if you're trying to if you're thinking you're just gonna get in the bottom and sell a high, I mean, that's really unrealistic. No one really knows. So if you're getting a good deal, go for it. If you're getting a good deal today, great, go for it. Because you never know, right? Again, all these things we can make predictions, but let's see how it is. But still, rather, even if there is a correction, worldwide, all these things, I'd still, be nowhere else than Dubai. I think the fundamentals is all that matters. If the fundamentals make sense, you'll make money.
All right, perfect. Thank you for your time, Ahmed. I think that was perfect. So
you're welcome. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Let's hop.